Hey, this is Dave Pryor, and I'm here in Orlando in the Gaylord Biosphere for Agile 2014. And I'm very happy to have Johanna Rothman and Jutta Eckstein here, and you're going to talk about your presentation that you're giving together, right?
We
Which
are.
is called Diving for Hidden Treasures, Finding the Real Value in Your Project Portfolio. And that talk is on Thursday at 3:45 if you can still get into it. Maybe full by the time you see this video, but hopefully you'll find a way into it. So can you talk a little bit about what the presentation is about?
Well, let me start just for the moment because I always, for Utah, I always start first. So Utah had given this great talk last year, and I didn't get a chance to go because I was actually talking during your talk.
That's true.
And it was all about the beyond budgeting thing and how you get people away from using schedule and cost estimates to think about the project portfolio and the value. And I said, Utah, I really want to work with you about how you get people to think about the project portfolio in another way. And she so generously said, let's do something together.
So this is why we are here.
Yes.
Right. And actually, what I remember, what brought us together was when I said, like, I think we are always asking the wrong question. We are asking the question, how long will it take? How much will it cost? But what we should really ask is, what value does it provide? And this is where I remember so how your face was just, yes, this is what I'm always saying. So, and this is why we are doing this together now.
Yeah. So I kind of assaulted her at lunch. But then she said yes. And so that's why we're here.
That's all good. So a lot of people are talking about value and saying we should be looking at that instead. But how do you figure out what the value? How do you quantify value if you're not going to look at money or time or anything like that?
So you can't. Well, you can look at time, but not in terms of estimation.
Okay.
Right. So estimation is a prediction.
Right.
And I don't know how about you, but my crystal ball, kind of as black as this microphone. Right. So if anything you look at as a prediction is almost always bound to be wrong.
Right.
So one of the things that we did was say, what about looking at cost of delay? And what we said was, wait, maybe if we start writing about cost of delay, we can make this much easier for people to understand.
Okay.
So we each wrote a bunch of blog posts and put them on our blogs. And then we came up with this little Lean Pub book, which turns out to be not so little. It's what is it, 80 or 100 pages or something now?
Yeah,
Wow.
something like that.
It's a bunch of pages. So we have this book on Lean Pub, which we just realized needs a little bit more editing. But it's available now on Lean Pub, and we're making it free for anyone who comes to our session.
Okay.
It's called Diving for Hidden Treasures, Finding the Real Value in Your Project Portfolio.
Okay.
And it's a collection of our writings, and that way we would give people a framework for looking at the value. But you can look at cost of delay. What is it?
That's like a negative approach to understanding the value? Like if we don't do it, it's going to cost us this much, or if we wait this long, it's going to cost us this much?
Well, it's looking at what actually is creating cost of delay. And therefore, what can you do in order to avoid that for creating value instead? So maybe a little example, but I think it's a very important one, and it's very well known in Agile, is like experts are creating a cost of delay because things are queuing up at the expert's desk.
Right.
And if you have like cross-functional teams working together, you don't have that. You only have one queue, right?
Okay.
So this is one thing which helps you to create value. However, it's also thinking of your earlier question, thinking of how to define value. I think what we need to look for is more like the ones who really want that stuff we are creating, deciding how much are they willing to invest in what we are building.
Okay.
Instead of asking the ones who are building it, so the poor developers saying,
It'll
how much?
Much.
Right. So turning it around.
So you would have to ask the customer, instead of saying it's going to cost you this much, try to figure out some way of determining how much they're willing to spend to get
right. And there's more to it, like how much am I willing to spend, or how much you think is the return on investment, or how high are our savings if we have that. So it's looking from that other angle, not only from, yeah, how much does it cost? How much
Okay.
effort do we need to put into that? And then the cost of delay comes as a really big chunk into that, because we are looking at how can we create value.
Yeah. So do you guys find that in people talking about value, which they seem to be doing more frequently, that I mean, most of the time when I hear people talk about it, it's still like this cloudy thing. Like we should measure value instead of these other things, like you mentioned, money and time and things like that. But when I ask, oh, how do you figure out what the value is, it's usually kind of vague, and there's not a real clear sense of that. But that's
So one of the things that I actually said in my manager project portfolio book
right.
is think about business value. I use business value points in the sense of if you had um, money to spend, right? Every business does this. In fact, I bet you do it in your home budget
Right.
all the time, right? You have a limited amount to spend
Sure.
on anything, and you have to allocate your money in a certain way. So you have to allocate some for rent or mortgage. You have to allocate some for food.
Mhm.
You have to allocate some for clothing. How do you want to allocate your money? And so you have to decide at maybe the beginning of the month, I want to allocate some for this and some for that and some for this. Now, you're not going to allocate everything for the year. You're going to make some changes over the year,
Right.
right? Based on the value that you perceive, maybe at the beginning of every month.
Okay.
Every business should be doing the same thing, and you're going to change your mind
Mhm.
over the course of the year. This is called incremental funding,
Right.
right? And if you want to take a vacation, you're going to save money over the course of the year
Yeah.
to save for that vacation. And then when you go on vacation, you're going to have a great time. You're going to spend all your money.
And then spend the extra money that you didn't bring with you.
Well, hopefully not too much, right? But this is what you do.
Okay.
We do this as humans,
But not as businesses yet.
Yeah.
and I wonder why. So, what Jutta and I have said in the book and in the handout for the workshop is let's examine what we could do to think like that,
Right.
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So if we say, what is the value? Maybe you don't want to use business value points, and this is not story points,
Okay.
Mhm.
right? But business value points, that's one possibility. And if you don't like that, you don't have to like that idea. But what else could you use?
Okay. How are you finding people are responsive to it? I mean,
Absolutely. I find more and more people asking for answers in that area.
Okay.
This is, I believe, also the reason why, for example, we have now this year Jutta Eckstein here
Mhm.
as a keynote speaker
Yeah.
from Beyond Budgeting, because we can learn so much from them. So related to the incremental funding, what they have, like the rolling budgeting,
Mhm.
and the same is what you should do looking at your portfolio. So frequently looking at, are we still putting our money into the projects that are worthwhile
Right.
spending the money for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the Agile portfolio management level, what they would end up doing then is reprioritizing the projects that they've got on the table
Exactly.
based on what is their understanding of the most important and most valuable thing
Exactly.
month to month.
Right.
That's a
Right.
pretty significant change,
Yeah.
though, for a lot of
It
the way
is.
business
It
It
is.
is.
And I'm not sure how much time it will take for, especially the traditional organizations, to
Yeah.
really make that change. It's a big one. On the other hand, it's quite easy always to get back. You know, you can
Yeah.
start with your whatever long-term plan, and if you only start then saying, okay, just let us take another look at it next month.
Mhm.
And if they feel like, okay, this is frightening,
Yeah.
so they just don't do it. So it's not that you really make a big thing there.
Right.
You can always step back. So it's maybe a change that is easier to make than other changes.
It's funny because it sounds like common sense, but they also have this addiction to the long range planning of things that aren't going to happen anyway. And
That's so
like you said,
true.
you're going to budget your money for vacation. Well, when they talk about people, it's like, well, we'll just put him on that at 300% and he'll figure it out.
That's so true.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is why I wrote Manage Your Project Portfolio, right? And the subtitle is Increase Your Capacity and Finish More Projects. Because if you just do manage your project portfolio, you actually get more throughput,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? Because you stop the
Yeah.
multitasking, you stop thinking about things at 300%. What kind of a person works on anything at 300%, right? I want to know,
Yeah.
when does that ever happen?
Yeah.
Right? You start coding with your fingers and your toes, and what lifetime does this happen?
Yeah.
Right? So, and
It's so common sense, and it's so not present in most of the companies.
well, and it's hard, right? It's hard because the systems that we have set up in companies
Yeah.
don't work that way. So it takes a very courageous set of managers to say, wait a minute, what we are doing now doesn't actually work. Let's try something else.
Do you?
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
well, actually, it's so hard because it asks the business to make a decision.
Yeah.
And as long as they are not deciding, they feel like, oh, we have decided it's all very important. We have to make this all.
Right.
But on the other hand, what's happening then is postponing the decision to the team or sometimes even to a single guy because he's
Right.
working for 5 different projects
Yeah.
and he has to make the decision, where do I spend my time now? And it's actually a lack of decision at a different level.
Yeah. Do you? It almost sounds like when I got out of school and I thought I understood how to manage my money and I really didn't. It's like businesses are maturing almost in the way that they're planning, maybe.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
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 And it takes a certain amount of maturity to say, wait a minute, we really cannot do everything all at once. We have to make a decision about what to do now. One of the things that I've said and Jutta has said is that project portfolio decisions are not forever. They're for now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you get to remake that decision as soon as you have finished enough value in your project. Right? This is why Agile and
okay.
Kanban are so useful, right? Iterations and flow are so useful because as soon as you finish something, you get to redecide.
So they could almost be the replacement for the traditional milestones then. You
Exactly.
get to make a new choice.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
betcha.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you both.
Thank you.
Please go to their talk. I have to look at it to make sure I don't mess up the title because it's long. Diving for Hidden Treasures, Finding Real Value in Your Project Portfolio, which is on Thursday at 3:45 in Sun Sea. And you're each giving other talks as well.
Yeah.
So you've got Agile Teams, Self-Organizing. You guys have long titles. Self-Organizing, Co-Located, and Distributed, which is on Monday, which is probably the day you're going to see this video, and that's at 2 o'clock on Miami. And Johnny, you're speaking on Tuesday at 10:45, also in Miami, on Agile projects, programs, and portfolio management. No air quotes necessary. Right?
At 10:45.
10:45. All right.
Yes.
Thank you both very much.
Thank
Have a great
you.
conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.